Hi there YouTube, welcome back to another video, and this one is a little special because you seem to remember, as I said in my last video, if I hit 100 subscribers I would force myself, ready or not, to attempt to do a battle report. I have set up the table and I'm just going to do, for this first little video here, which hopefully will be linked into a larger video eventually. I always like introductions to the forces that I'm going to be using, so this is the first part, and it's going to be a quick overview of the Brits that are going to be fighting today. So first of all, we'll start with the brigade commander, who is a lone colonel on foot, and he is supported by a battery of, in this case a smaller battery because I've only got one stand obviously, but eventually it'll be 2 guns, but for now a battery of Royal Artillery, a single small battery, which obviously counts as a regular. And then infantry wise we have 4 battalions of infantry, so I'll just run you through them. So we have the 33rd Foot British Line, the that's my little reference sheet because I've forgotten the name. Where did I put it? Here. The 30th Foot British Line. And then we have 2 Hanoverian units, 2 Hanoverian battalions. So we have the Piene battalion, and we also have the Griffhorn battalion there. Now for this battle, I'm basically, because it's basically literally is my first game, because I haven't had time to actually, you know, I've kind of read through the rules, but I haven't had time to actually play a sort of tester game. I'm basically kind of following the basic pamphlet that came in the Waterloo starter set. Now it is version 1, but I believe practically everything, apart from I think enfilade fire, is more or less the same on the reference sheet, and something tells me that I'm probably not going to have any enfilade fire problems on this particular battle report, because I've basically designed my table to be more or less a 6x4 open field with some sort of terrain around the sides, so hopefully that won't become a problem. Special rules for like units also, I've kind of not really bothered with any of that. They're basically just basic units, but I did decide, just for fun factor, to keep the freshly raised unreliable rules for the Hanoverians. I thought that would be sort of quite cool, even though it puts the British at a little bit of a disadvantage, because the French have all got more or less standard line infantry. But okay, this is the end of this little particular part. I'll be up again in a few seconds with the French forces, so I'll catch you then. Okay, welcome back. I'm now going to go through the French forces that are going to be fighting today, starting off with a battalion commander on foot. We then have the 23rd line, the 34th line, which are here, and we have the 15th Light, which is a light infantry battalion, and we have the 12th Chasseurs de Cheval, and that makes up the French forces. The Chasseurs de Cheval are probably going to be split into 2 units of 6, mainly because of me having to play on a 6x4 end to end, so I thought it would be a little bit better to have, rather than one giant great battalion of cavalry, to have it split up into 2 smaller units. Plus it gives the French a little bit more manoeuvrability. Of course the French having a little bit of an edge because of the fact that the Brits have the 2 units of Hanoverian Landwehr, which of course are freshly raised and unreliable, having those particular 2 special rules, which are, like I said in the British overview, the only 2 sort of special rules that I'm using, just because I thought it would be you know, a bit of fun. So the French have the edge. let's next time you'll see them, I'll have them set up on the table, and I'll give you a table overview. And after that, we'll hopefully get started on the battle. I'm quite looking forward to it. Like I say, I've only read the rules. I mean, I've read through the rules several times now, but we all know what happens when you start playing a game. You always forget things. You make mistakes, but hopefully, because the rules aren't too difficult, I've got reference sheets. It should hopefully run quite smoothly. I've decided to go for the dice rolling method, i.e. I'll basically hand roll any dice, and you can see the results. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to move the units and hold the camera. I might have to. I haven't really thought about how to move my units while having to hold the camera at the same time. I don't think my tripod is going to be that handy because of the time it'll take for me to actually keep transferring the camera to the tripod. So what I might do is I might make a little cut, move the figures, and then rejoin it. It's a little bit more hassle, but hopefully, I'm hoping that my editing program will literally allow me to click and paste each of these little segments together into one sort of semi-coherent video. So bear with me. I'm hoping it'll be fun. And of course, feel free to comment with how rubbish I'm going to play this game. Like I say, I tend to play all my games solo because I'm sort of disabled, so I don't really get out much. And also, a lot of my, particularly a lot of my friends in this sort of area aren't particularly into wargaming, so especially the ones that are close. So I don't normally get a very big chance of actually, actually playing with another human being. But I do enjoy solo play, and let's hope it goes well. So next time I'll see you, we'll be at the table. Catch you then. Hey there again, YouTube. Welcome back. I've now, as you can see, I've set my table up first. I'll give you a quick view around it, and you can also see the how the forces have been set up. So we'll start from over this side. This is where the Brits are coming in onto the map. Like I said, we've got some mainly open fields. We've got like a river going off in the background there, like a road system coming down and across. We've got some light woods over on the side here. Over here we've got a little abandoned town with a small sort of outcrop of fields. And over here we have the French coming on. Over in the background there, a hill and a sort of a deforested woods there. It's kind of rough ground. And then back onto the river again and back down. So we'll start off with having a look at where the British are set up. So we'll come over. Okay, so we have a hill banking onto the table here, and we've got the one Hanoverian battalion and one British battalion coming on, and the artillery piece has taken position on top of this hill here. And coming down off the off side of the hill, we've got the 2nd British line infantry with another Hanoverian. So we've got, I think that's the 30th there. Is that right? Yeah, 30th, and then we got the 33rd coming in over there with the that's the Griffhorn battalion, and there's the PNA battalion. So now if we go back down, I've got keep knocking these trees over. I do actually have some foreground trees, but there's a whole bunch of junk in front of my Detolf at the minute, and I didn't particularly feel like clearing that out to actually get those trees out. So over here we have the little abandoned town. We'll with a little, well, I suppose it would actually be like a little, the outskirts of a little village. So we have the first section of the Chasseurs de Cheval coming on through this little abandoned town here, and they'll probably just leap the wall rather than skirt around it. Coming on a few feet away, we've got the Light Infantry Battalion. Then we have the is that the 23rd, 24th line, 34th line, sorry. Then we have the commander, and then we have the 3rd line infantry unit over there, which I can't remember what they are for the second. And finally over there on the coming off the opposite side hill, we've got the second section of the Chasseurs de Cheval. Who will have no problem coming down that hill. The hill is, even though it's got a little bit of a steep bank, they'll just come straight off of that in one move. So that's the second unit of Chasseurs de Cheval, and that is the sort of setup for the table. So next time we'll continue on and start the battle. So catch you in a minute. Hey there, welcome back. We are almost ready to start. I thought I would basically just tell you a bit about, like I say, I'm basically using the rules from the little starter pamphlet that came with the my Waterloo starter set. And like I said, it is version 1, but hopefully any of the sort of big changes that came in version 2 I won't be coming across in this particular game, because it's like very, very basic. And I've got my little sheet here, I've just written down the stats of the units. I'm using the slightly altered ranges and movement ranges that it suggests in the little starter booklet, which is I've written it down here. For the movement ranges, infantry will move 6 inches, cavalry will move 10. I've just slightly upped that actually, from 8 to 10. Is that right to up that? Let's just double check. Hold on. Let's have a look. I did slightly up it. These are what they recommend in the rules. 6, 9, and 3. I think I've slightly altered the cavalry to make them like 1 inch faster, because I thought, you know, horses move a lot faster than guys. So I think that's the only one I've changed. So we've got infantry moving 6, cavalry moving 10. And man-handled artillery, i.e. the battery, because it's not limbered, can be pushed 3. As far as like terrain goes, like I say, these are just like sort of small hedges. I'm not going to make those affect the infantry in any way, apart from the fact that they can use them as light cover if they happen to be behind them, just because it obscures view. But obviously the battalion would just move around those because they're just intermittent. It's not like a full hedge wall. Then we've got a little light forest over there, which I'd say that it can be crossed unhindered by infantry or cavalry. It's not really. It's just meant to be like some, like a light dusting of trees. And then obviously we do have a stone wall here, which I will slow down the French cavalry when they cross it, but I don't think it'll make too much difference. So that's basically the sort of the special rules of the sort of the terrain. And I thought I might as well just do a couple of dice rolls to see who goes first. So we've got blue dice for the French and red dice for the British. So let's roll the British first. So they get a 9, and the French, they get a 4. So the British will be moving first, and I'll just, well, you'll see them move in a second. Okay, I'm back. We are ready to start the game. We have the French set up, we have the British set up, and we're going to roll now to see who goes first. So we've got the blue dice for the French. Let's roll those guys first. They get a 9, and for the Brits, they get a 6. So it looks as if the French are going to be moving first. So let's get going. So, if I just briefly get my tape measure ready, I'm just going to basically quickly check the command radius. I believe commander's pretty well situated. So he's basically certainly in line for all of the infantry units. This cavalry unit is not in command range, but they do have that marauder rule, so I believe that they don't actually take any minuses when it comes to giving orders. So the first move the French are going to do is they're basically going to order the Light Infantry Battalion, the 15th Light, to basically to advance forward. So I believe because they're in march column they get a +1. So let's see what happens. Oh dear. And immediately they blunder. So let me just grab, that's not a good start for the French. So if we have a look at the, have we got a blunder table on here? No. So I'm just going to have to grab the rule book. Hold on. Actually, blunder table could be on here. Oh, we are. Here we go. So let's see what they get. So they get a 5. Blunder chart 5. The unit will advance 1 move forward. This could result in charging any instance. I know where it is like that. So basically, it just moves 1 move forward, and I'll be back when I've moved them. Yeah, I'm back. I just recorded my first French movement, and the method that I was experimenting with of recording the dice move and then trying to move them all in one fluid motion wasn't really working. It was far too jarry a camera, and a lot of the time I found that I was just recording grass and you're not actually seeing the figures move. So I think the way that I'm going to do movement is to actually just do all the movements and then tell you what happened. So as you can see, the French commander decided, the brigade commander decided not to move. The first unit that moved was the I always keep forgetting these names. Oh, it's the the 15th Light. They actually advanced 1 move. So that's the 15th Light. The 23rd line, which is the guys over here, they got 1 movement. The 34th line, they got 1 movement. The chasseurs, this particular unit over here, they failed to move. And the chasseur unit that was on top of the hill there, they actually got up to 3 moves. So they've actually shot forward, but I decided to only move them 2 moves because I don't want them just riding blindly into British artillery range. In fact, actually they might be pretty close to it now. But they've basically shot ahead, so they're basically you know, doing their job, scouting forward. The rest of the battalion's moving up at a pretty slow rate, but at least they're moving. And they have the complete failure of the chasseurs de chevals in the village. Perhaps they decided to you know, have a little, you know, dismount and have a little snoop around to see if they could find any booty before finding out that they missed their orders to move. So that is the end of the French turn. I think this will be the best way of doing the movement, just because I found the camera work to be far too all over the place, and trying to move figures with one hand is quite difficult, and plus the fact that I'm not too stable on my feet, so the camera work was all over the place. It'd probably give you like vertigo or something. Okay, so that's the end of the French turn, because there's obviously no shooting and no hand-to-hand. Like I said, the brigade commander decided not to move this turn, because obviously he's still pretty much in range of all the main units he needs to be. And of course the light cavalry are marauders, so they more or less do what they want anyway. So that's the end of the French turn. I'll be back in a second with the British. Back from just doing the British movement, I'll explain what happened. They had a pretty good movement spout, the old Brets. We had the two units on the hill basically moved one move forward each. The brigade commander moved up, and both units of the two off the hill units, i.e. the 33rd Foot and the Piano Division, they both actually got 3 moves, and they took full advantage of that full movement. So they've actually spouted a good few feet in front of the old hill infantry there. So the Brits are advancing across this field at a fair old pace. So that's the British movement, and I also measured the artillery piece on the hill there to see if anything was in range, particularly the chasseurs de cheval that jumped up from the French side, and they are out of range, so there'll be no firing or hand-to-hand obviously from the British side. So that is the end of the first turn, and I'll be back in a second with the next French movement phase. Okay, so French move round 2. The commander again didn't move. The chasseurs de cheval over here again refused to move. The 15th light had 1 move, so they simply moved forward. I believe it's the 34th line, they actually had 2 moves, so they took 1 move forward advancing, and then they changed formation into attack column, I believe this is. And finally, or is it line? Oh, I'll find out. And finally, the 3rd unit, or the 23rd line, they actually failed their movement, so they didn't move. And the chasseurs de cheval are over here. They got 1 move, and they decided to just shimmy into the light woods near the river there. Hopefully still out of the range of the cannon. So that is the end of the movement of the French turn. Again, I don't think they've got any sort of no combat, no hand-to-hand. So at the end of the French turn, again the chasseurs de cheval down here. Pretty poor show by these guys, especially assuming they're the one with the commanding officer in. They're obviously, like I said before, spending too much time having a look, rooting around this abandoned village for booty, instead of following their orders. Okay, so that's the end of French turn 2. I'll be back with the British. Okay, I'm back. I've actually noticed a few minor mistakes I've been making. The first is formations. Apparently that's an attack column, not a marching column, so I apologise for that. And the couple of units that changed into what I thought was an attack column is actually line formation. So we'll just, obviously I've kind of locked that in now, so I know what I'm doing. But let's go through the British move. Obviously the artillery piece did not do anything, because it's kind of hoping that the French will be lured into range. Strangely enough, both the Griffhorn Battalion and the 33rd Foot both refused to move, and again I made a slight error there in the fact that I believe when you fail an order, that kind of ends your turn. As I made those mistakes on the French side, I basically continued on the British for this turn, but obviously for the next turn I will adhere to that rule. Oddly, over this closer side of the table, both of these units actually had 2 moves each, and they both, in fact actually I think thinking about it, I think they had 3 moves each. No, they didn't, 2 moves each. And this particular British unit, this unit had 3 moves, so it moved up 2 and it changed formation. And this battalion here, the Pianet division, the Pianet battalion, simply, I think they had 1 move, and they simply advanced up the road a little further. So we have these 2 British units slightly ahead of the rest of the British formation, and I will now quickly check the artillery range for the cannon, because as I said, the French, the chasseurs de cheval over by the woods there, they did a sort of a short move into the light woods, kind of I suppose waiting slightly for the rest of the battalion to, well not battalion, but the rest of the brigade to sort of try and catch up, because as you can see the French aren't really mastering the art of moving forward at the moment. So let's just get the tape measure sorted for measuring the range. As I said a little earlier, the range for cannons that I'm using is 24, so I'll just try and sort that out. It's hard to try and do one-handed, you know. So let's just try to pull it out and lock it at the same time. There we go. Right, so let's check for the artillery pieces, see if they're in range. If they are, they will take a shot at those chasseurs de cheval in the woods. So let's hold on, I need to move over a little bit. Okay, so basically the gun is still out of range, so they will not be doing anything this turn. So that is the end of British turn 2. And if we do a quick sweep across the battlefield to show you what the situation at the moment, the British Brigade Commander didn't move. Obviously those 2 battalions didn't move. These 2 battalions moved up quite a bit. 1 unit changed into line formation, foreseeing the looming French. As far as the French go, they didn't have too much luck at all, and they're kind of being stalled a little bit, because like I say, they had 1 unit that failed, 2 units that moved, 1 unit that moved 1 unit that moved 2, they changed into line formation, and the chasseurs de cheval that are still busy pillaging what's left of that burnt out village rather than following commands. So, I'll be back again at the start of the next French phase. Catch you in a second. Okay, so we started the movement phase for the French turn 4. And basically the commander failed to give his first order to the I believe that's the 24th line? No, the 23rd line, sorry. And I believe from the mistake that I made in the turns thus far, I believe that ends the movement for the French, because they failed to give an order. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether it's in the rules that the brigade commander himself can actually move, because presumably he doesn't have to be given orders. But I'll just say for now that he can't, so I'll stay where he is, and I'll be back with the British turn 4 in a second. Okay, so movement for the British turn. The brigade commander first gave an order to the Griffhorn battalion, and they were basically ordered to move forward, and if they had the extra movement to change formation. However, all they ended up doing was just moving forward one move. Then the 33rd were ordered to do the same, and they basically failed, so they stayed put. The PLA division, they were given orders to again advance and if possible change formation to line, and they failed, so they actually thinking about it, they actually blundered. They blundered and ended up moving one forward. So they're sort of heading towards that crossroads there. And finally, the 30th foot failed their orders completely. So that kind of effectively ended the British turn, but brigade commander did move up one move before actually ordering those guys, so they did actually get a move. So the Brits are a little bit more on the ball than the French for this turn, because the French had a terrible movement turn this turn. So as we can see, with a quick overview of the table, again the cannon's out of range because the chasseurs de cheval stayed in the trees there, and of course these guys over here have basically been stuck there for now 4 turns. Because the brigade commander never actually got to issue orders that particular turn. So, a quick overview of the table. We've got 3 line infantry units blundering up over here. The brigade commander has failed to move for a couple of turns, so he's starting to get out of command range of at least one of the units of infantry, the light infantry there. They've still got their chasseurs de cheval lurking in the light forest there, which could be a threat to these 2 infantry units here. However, the Hanoverians did decide to go into line formation, thinking that with the extra firepower of 2 infantry units nearby and under the support of the cannon, that they might be able to offensively push the cavalry away without actually getting charged, but who knows what will happen. So that's the end of British turn 4 as well, and I'll be back at the end of the French movement phase. Catch you in a second. Okay, back from the end of the French movement phase. So quite interesting things happening. We've got the chasseurs de cheval in the village here, still refusing to move. That's now 5 turns have just been stuck there. The light infantry, the 15th light, refused to move, and both of the other line infantry units each had up to 3 moves, and they decided, this particular battalion here took a 12-inch move, so 2 moves, and then they changed formation to line. And the 34th here also got up to 3 moves, and they basically did the same. They basically moved 12 and changed formation to line. So we've now got 2 of the French units in line formation, and approximately, I'd say maybe 13 inches away from engagement, and of which the musket ranges, I'm using 9 inches for musket range on this particular table, so it's getting pretty close. This Hanoverian unit here is going to have to, the Piano Brigade, is going to have to think about changing formation. But again, you have this threat from the old chasseurs in the woods there. You know, do they push forward to engage, or do they stay back a little bit to have some support from the artillery on the hill? That's basically the French turn ends because nobody's in range. So I'll be back again at the end of the British movement, which could well end in some engagement. Back in a sec. Okay, so I've just finished the British movement, and we've got some quite exciting things happening. All the British units moved. Both the PNA, or the Griffhorn, sorry, and the 33rd both had 3 moves. They advanced and they changed into line formations. I believe the Griffhorn was already in line formation, so that actually just advanced 12. So they're in a good range of these guys. I'm going to check in a second to see if they're in firearms range. And coming down a little bit further, the PNA division got 2 moves, and they basically advanced up to the edge of the road. Just zoom back out a little bit, there we go. And finally the old 30th, they just moved once to just onto the road, and so that's all the British in line formation at the minute. And the commander, he did move a couple of inches, but he's staying in command range of his cannon. But he is kind of out of command range of his troops now, so he's going to have to sort of come up with a decision in a second whether to follow up and leave the cannon to sort of fend for itself, or actually go up and support the infantry, which could be a little flaw in the British plan, with the cannon being so far back. So I'm just about to measure, I'll actually measure live to see if the muskets are in range. Like I said before, I'm going for 9 inches for musket fire. So let's have a look. I'll just have to stand up. Okay, so let's go for these guys first. So 9 inches, and they are literally about an inch out of range, and that's the same for them. However, they can, 2 units can fire at the chasseur de cheval in the light woods. So I'm just going to cut off here and just have a quick review of the shooting rules, and I'll be back to do some live dice rolls for the combat. See you in a second. Okay, I've just reviewed the shooting rules again. I think I've got them down, but I'll at least go ahead to see if we can get some initial shooting going. Now, because these Hanoverian, or rather the Griffhorn battalion, are in this particular case Hanoverian Landwehr rather than Hanoverian line, I've got a roll on the freshly raised table, and I'll do that now. I believe you do it before you shoot. So here's the roll for that. So we get a 5, which is no effect, so they shoot as normal. So 3 dice, and I've given the chasseurs light cover. So I believe that's 5s and 6s to hit. So let's go. Got a cocked dice there. Okay. So we have a 2 hits and instant disorder, but I'm also going to do the second unit, which is the 33rd foot, which we're also going to fire at the Chasseurs Cheval. They'll get 3 dice as well, and let's see what happens. Okay, so okay, I'm sorry, I completely missed the dice there. So these guys get 3 hits. So I guess we roll some saves, and I believe they also go instantly disordered. So let's grab some French dice. Okay, so for the first 3 saves, 4, 5, 6s, I believe. Okay, so they save 1. So let me just so I believe that's 2 casualty markers and a disordered. And for the second, which was 3 hits, lost the dice again. Where are you? There. They saved 2, so they take 1 more hit. So that is 4 hits. No, it's not. It's 3 hits. 3 hits and disordered. Which I believe... Now here comes the interesting part of me completely at a loss what to do next. I'll keep the... so these guys have just got absolutely raked by both the Griffhorn and the 33rd foot. So it's shaken, disordered, and it's taken more than its stamina. So is that destroyed? Sorry, I'm going to cut off here and be back in a second. Okay, I'm back. I've just had a quick read in the actual main rulebook. That's to tell the truth, the sort of quick start guide doesn't really explain particularly well what to do if they go above their stamina rating. So basically these guys are going to roll for a break test. They took 2 hits from the first volley and a further 2 hits from the second and the disordered. So I believe it's a -1 on their break test roll, and I will do that now. So we've got a 7. The unit holds its ground. It stays where it is and does not move. So I guess it just takes that fire. And that is the end of the British turn. There's no further shooting, so I'll be back again at the end of the French turn, or well, the end of French movement anyway. And of course then there'll be probably some live firing for the French. Hopefully it'll go a little bit more smooth this time. See you in a second. So I've just done the French. This would be turn 6, I believe. So French move turn 6. We got the disordered chasseurs de cheval in the light woods. The 24th line infantry moved forward to. I mean, they could have gone a little closer, but they didn't want to. They basically moved up to probably about 4 or 5 inches away from the 33rd. The 34th line also had a great success and had up to 2 moves. They moved up 1. Because again, they didn't want to get too close. And finally, with great pleasure, the chasseurs de cheval over in the forest here have obviously finished pillaging and actually decided to follow some orders and begin moving across this field here, hoping to clear the wall and maybe zoom up and possibly even try and get around the back of these guys, although that will get them within range of that. But certainly a little bit of a threat on the British right flank there from those chasseurs. And of course the 15th line, who rather miserably failed to move at all and stayed put right when they were kind of needed to push forward into the attack. And the brigade commander moved forward. He was kind of hoping to move a little bit closer to the chasseurs de cheval to try and give them an inspiring speech to get them back into some sort of order. But they have taken a pretty nasty raking, and it wouldn't surprise me if these guys might have to start retreating rather than try and engage. So that is the end at the end of